Welcome to Making the Triple Play, Scaling Variable Rate Application to Benefit the Environment, Farmer, and Ag Retailer. I'm Bradford Warner, and thanking each of you for making time today to join our session. Specifically, we're going to be talking about delivering the next generation of sustainable agricultural production based on scaling variable rate technology. The panelists will focus on how a pragmatic, innovative, and collaborative approach, combined with experts in farming, ag retail, and the Fertilizer Institute, took a challenging regulatory goal and turned it into an expanding success story. With an impact spanning thousands of acres in a critical watershed, this cross-disciplinary panel is going to discuss how people, process, and technology have scaled variable rate applications and how it can be replicated across the nation. Joining me today will be Peyton Harmer from the Fertilizer Institute, Andrew Gladden from Lucky Farmers, and Steve Covage from Farm Mobile. Peyton, we'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks Bradford. As we're going to be discussing how 4R plays a role today in variable rate application with variable rate technology, the first thing that's important to understand is exactly what the 4Rs are. Next slide, please. 4Rs of nutrient stewardship are, in essence, fertilizer management. It's making sure that you're applying the right source at the right rate at the right time and in the right place. It's a set of questions and basically a background structure for proper nutrient management across the board. Where, in essence, it sounds to be fairly simple on the surface, but in reality, the 4Rs drill down into some very precise fertilizer management practices that take place on a site-specific field level. Next slide, please. The 4Rs of nutrient stewardship, and to include a robust 4R strategy in any operation, site-specific characteristics are essential to consider. Soil characteristics, soil type, depth of soil, as well as slope, distance to water. Is it a floodable field? Is this a field that retains moisture? And then, of course, conservation practices. How are we able to merge proper fertilizer management with practices that also benefit the environmental landscape as well? Always considering our crop and yield goals. How can we better manage fertilizer for weather? And that all-important question to every farmer in the country, cost. How can I help manage my fertilizer cost and get the most out of the products that are going onto my field? So next slide, please. Through different practices within a complete 4R strategy, variable rate technology is one of the key practices that any farmer can implement across the board to ensure that they're getting the most out of their fertilizer management and 4R strategy. But in essence, what is variable rate technology? Two different definitions here basically say the same thing on variable rate technology. It's any tool or system that allows a farmer to vary the rate of crop inputs. Variable rate technology is the application of a material such that the rate of application is based on the precise location or qualities of the area that the material is being applied to. The bottom line, variable rate technology is a primary tool of 4R because it allows us to control the amount of fertilizer, the amount of product that is going on in a site-specific location in an area of any field that we may be farming on across the country. Next slide, please. And when we begin to merge site-specific characteristics, a robust 4R strategy, and variable rate technology into one system, we're able to take a look at different 4R practices and, as we see, move that in a direction from basic to intermediate to advanced 4R strategies across the board. This is a great example from one of our 4R advocates. Our 4R advocates are farmer and retailer pairs that work in conjunction with each other to really build a robust and site-specific 4R strategy. This specific example is on Illinois corn with a yield ranging from 229 to 256 bushels per acre on this one particular farm. In 2014, you can see here the cost of grid-based variable rate application, $290. Zone-based, we're sitting roughly at $270 for that year. But as the 4R strategy of this particular operator continued to advance, we can see in 2015, 2016, and 2017 that whether we're using grid-based variable rate technology or zone-based variable rate technology, his cost for application continued to decrease, and his return on investment from his 4R strategy continued to grow and grow and grow. Next slide, please. Digging down into these numbers a little bit more and how variable rate technology and a complete 4R strategy were really playing a role within this operation, I really like to highlight the nutrient use efficiency. As you follow his nutrient use efficiency and his 4R story from basic practices in 2014 to intermediate practices in 2016, all the way through to advanced practices in 2017, his nutrient use efficiency is continuing to increase. Of course, there is some weather volatility and site-specific qualities that do come into play for this, but continuing that story across the board, we can even follow through with his CO2 emissions per bushel, all the way down to 34.7% reduction across the board once we reach that advanced level for our practices. Variable rate technology and the ability to know exactly what type of product is going on, where it's going on, and controlling that exact amount allows us to actually see a true 4R story and how that begins to play back to that bottom line and the goals of that farmer. Next slide, please. While we were talking about corn in Illinois on this one particular example, we've been working on 4R case studies featuring 4R advocates and just advanced 4R farmers across the country for the past few years. And at 4rfarming.org, you can view several examples of how variable rate technology plays a key role in multiple cropping systems and operations in various geographies. So just because we're not growing corn in the Midwest doesn't mean 4R practices don't apply and don't work. They actually work extremely well. And so if you have questions on this, or if you have an opportunity to take a look at some of these case studies, I'd highly encourage it. Thank you.
We'll turn it over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Peyton. At Lucky Farmers, when we took a look at data management in the 4Rs, there were some key things that we needed to do. We needed to work in collaboration with our growers. We needed to help our growers eliminate volatility and risk, assist our growers in understanding their data, but we needed detailed, accurate record keeping for the 4R nutrient stewardship program. Next slide, please. We chose two data management systems, AgWorld and Farm Mobile. Both softwares are grower-centric softwares. They gather all the field level data. They analyze that data. And what we're looking to do is to utilize current data for in-season variable rate application. Next slide. First, we'll look at AgWorld. AgWorld is our true source of data. AgWorld links the grower, retailer, advisor, agronomist, applicators all in one software. It's our true source of data. It's mapping, soil sample, precision workflow, and reporting and benchmarking. Next slide. So what we looked at was a way for soil sample to variable rate application. We needed to streamline our soil sample process. We needed to simplify our work order execution, utilize current data for recommendations, all while meeting 4R requirements. Some of the 4R requirements that AgWorld helps us meet in this is soil tests are conducted at least once every 4 years, no larger than 25 acres. Soil tests include a minimum of organic matter, phosphorus, potassium, pH, and CC. And nutrient service provider maintains records to soil samples over 2 soil tests over an 8-year period, and that variable rate technology is used to apply the nutrient. Next slide, please. Inside of our AgWorld software, this is a grower. We have a section which shows all the fields and the last date they were sampled. Next slide. What we can do is we can filter down. Remember, we're not allowed to make a recommendation on a field that has a sample older than 4 years. We can filter that down right here. Next slide. We came up with 4 fields, 2 that have old samples on it and 2 new fields that don't have any samples. Right out of the software, we can create a sampling job. Next slide. This is creating the sample job. In this case, we're doing 2.5 acre grids. We select our fields. Next slide. We select our lab. We're using A&L Great Lakes Lab, our test package. And the key here is we can automatically process this data for precision once the data returns from the lab. Next slide. By doing that, we need to apply a template to these samples. So we're going to click the apply template. Next slide. We're going to set our crop yield goals, both for corn and soybeans. In this case, we're putting on some DAP and some lime. Next slide. Once the soils samples return from the lab, runs through that once it runs through that prescription, it lands here in the page. From here, next slide, we can adjust out that. If we don't want to put on all the fertilizer, we can run that precision report, and the grower also has all this information. Next slide. We can then approve the prescription, and we can convert that prescription to a work order. Next slide. And here is a work order that went through this process, variable rate in both potash and MAP on an alfalfa field. The controller files are digitally attached to this work order also. Next slide. So when we took a look at our soil samples, we verified that we had current soil samples. We created a sampling job. We automatically processed the samples for variable rate. The samples are taken, sent to the lab. The data from the lab is submitted via Modus. The lab completes the analysis. Data from the lab returns back to AgWorld via Modus. The data is automatically processed and run, creating the variable rate prescription, and the RX files are sent to the machine utilizing our ScanDisk API. Our old process from soil sample to the actual variable rate application took about 7 to 14 days. With the software, our new process is about 3 to 5 days, and it's just the time that it takes for the lab to complete the analysis. Next slide. Our next software partner is Farm Mobile. And with Farm Mobile, we were looking at doing variable rate application for yield removal. We needed to streamline our process for gaining access to that yield data. We needed to verify the data accuracy. We needed clean data. And we needed a way to upload that data to our software, all while meeting 4R requirements. Some of the 4R requirements as phosphorus and nitrogen applications are neither made or recommended on frozen or snow-covered ground. Digital field map data layers must be able to be generated and combined for better analysis to target nutrients in the field, and that variable rate technology is used to apply nutrients. Next slide. So Farm Mobile, how do they do this? Again, grower-centric software, connecting all the players. They do this through their PUC or passive upload connection. So the farmer has data. He has planting data, harvest data, where the retailer might have some spray data, spread data, fertility layers. And what we were looking at was gaining access to that yield data that the grower had. Next slide. So this is one of the growers that we work with. This is the day after he harvested this cornfield. The day after, we are able to export this harvest data point by point, either in a CSV shapefile or GeoJSON. Next. We're able to upload that data right into AgWorld. This is the data layer uploaded into the precision software. Next. And we run that through our variable rate application process, and we have a variable rate application for yield removal. This is the work order. Prescriptions, again, are attached digitally to this work order. Next. So our process, we needed to get access to that yield data. Farm Mobile has verified that data accuracy. We needed to move that data over to our precision software. The precision side, the data is processed for the VRT prescription, work order is created, and RX files are sent to the machine. Our old process, getting yield data from a grower, was about 7 to 14 days, and that's kind of being generous. We are doing this process next day, working with growers and Farm Mobile. Next. So with the 4R nutrient stewardship stewardship certification program, whether it's the goals of maximizing crop nutrient uptakes to the requirements, nutrient recommendation and applications, or every year we're third party audited. Next. Farm Mobile and AgWorld has helped us with the data accuracy for records for the 4R audit. The as applied records, history of field level data, being able to analyze that data to eliminate volatility and risk and crop management. But us, ultimately, it's helped us account for all the nutrients being applied to that field, being able to track where they've been applied, which ultimately leads to sustainability. Thank you.
So this is Steve Kovich, Vice President of Services here at Farm Mobile. Just following along with the story of Andrew and Lucky Farmers, what they're doing, the secret sauce that really made that work or really sped up the process was the real-time data that's being collected from the field. And next slide, please. And so that really talks about, you know, he mentioned the yield maps. It really starts at the farmer level, being able to immediately, as soon as that crop is harvested, that someone like back at the co-op, in the case of Lucky Farmers, knows that that field is ready to go and ready for a VRT application. So being able to get that yield data direct from the field, from that grower's combine in real time, and that's what the Farm Mobile Puck device is doing, getting it to the agronomy professionals to turn that into a variable rate prescription that is also sent back via the Farm Mobile Puck to the application machine, and ultimately you end up with an as applied data. So this is a turn and burn situation where in the past, if you didn't have that, a lot of times variable rate was not possible, and many of those acres just the entire field was spread at one straight rate, where in this case we're treating each acre individually and really adhering to the protocol of the 4R system. So being able to do that means that we can scale more acres and have more variable rate VRT acres across the board, and that wouldn't be possible without real time. Next slide. So really you're just looking at a process here. You're looking at the Puck device, and really it's almost like a Fitbit device that's gathering data, whether it be on the combine at the farmer level or at the fertilizer applicator at the co-op level. It all works in tandem, but being able to flow that data instead of going out and collecting USB drives to collect that data that can sometimes take days, weeks, and even months. We're able to do that literally in a 24 to 72 hour time frame from the time that that crop comes off that field, that we've got machines back in there actually spreading a VRT prescription on those acres. And so next slide. And so this really gives us the ability to scale and accelerate and grow the 4R potential across the board. And without that, you're just basically trying to, going back to the old ways, which really doesn't scale. And what we're trying to do is, as Peyton said from the very beginning, we want the best not only for the environment, but this is also a way to have an agronomic solution that benefits both the grower and the co-op or the ag retailer themselves as well.
Thank you, Steve. So we've used the metaphor today about making a triple play, obviously an uncommon event in baseball, but something we think can be made more common because sustainability programs do scale when everybody has a vested interest in the outcome. And so I appreciate perspectives, Peyton, and how this does work to further our environmental goals and improving environmental impact. Andrew, how it makes your job easier and allows you to scale acres in such a way to get more digitally engaged acres would help your business. And clearly we've shown how it helps the producer in getting the absolute right product at the right time, increasing their overall profitability of their fields. I'd like to thank all the presenters today for joining this session. We are all available through the email addresses that we have on screen. Steve and I will also make ourselves available during some of the virtual hall hours here at the Sustainable Ag Summit.